Right, hello guys. Now I'm going to talk about Doom. I'm going to talk about Doom multiplayer. This is a game that has just really fried my brain because it was a game that I was looking forward to so much. I was really looking forward to this game. The single player stuff that we'd seen looked really awesome, and then we come to the multiplayer and I was thinking, great, this is going to be, really intense, brutal arena action. Maybe it's going to take it to the next level, fast, intense, all the kind of stuff we want to see, but in a 2016 game. No, just did not arrive. It is not that. It is just, it's awful. It's just awful. I would not recommend it in its current state. Of course, maybe you see the full game, maybe there's going to be something else in there, but there were some really fundamental problems with it. Having watched other people's videos as well, it seems this is a general consensus. Levels video, he was talking about a lot of the stuff. There's some technical issues going on there, and again, he is a big player of Arena in the past, and he knows what he's talking about there, and he was not on board. I watched Total Biscuit's video this week as well, and he was saying the same thing. This game is just all over the place. It's a massive disappointment. It really, really is. I'm not going to go in a massive amount of detail because, as I say, there's other videos out there. I'm just pretty much going to run through and just kind of list the points because I think that's really all that needs to be said, and maybe all that it deserves. I feel bad. I always feel bad, sort of, because I know it's very hard for devs and stuff putting games out there, but at the same time, it's like, you've got to think of the big picture. You've got to think about, like, how is this going to be received? What do people want to see? Is this going to physically work in the game? Stuff like loadouts. Insanity. Why would you put loadouts in there? The fact that you just then always start with the best weapon. That's not how arenas traditionally work. In arena games, you start off usually with the worst weapon, and then you run around and pick up other weapons. The reason this is good is because it means that you have to use all of the weapons, and then you get used to using those in different ways. You have different skill abilities. All of the weapons should be not balanced, but they should be sort of comparable in how you use them and how you engage each other, and so that sometimes you are a bit of a disadvantage and you have to use your ability to move and get around on other people to actually make that work to your advantage, and sometimes you come off worse and sometimes you come off better, but that's how it works. But if you have loadouts, then it just means everybody starts with a rocket launcher, everybody starts with a super shotgun as their second weapon, and then it's just like, well, what is the point? And then other weapons are just never going to get used. So it's a completely ridiculous and poorly thought out system, just really stupid. It's just kind of boring as well. Like, I don't know whether it's just not quite fast enough, because in an arena you really want to be like bam, 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 getting around on people all the time, and it feels a little slow there. And then we come to the worst thing, which is the melee, and it's like, why put melee? I know that they wanted to have that kind of like the animated grab head, twist neck, bam, crash, crash. Now, I in the past have actually said that I am a big fan of those kind of animations. I'm a big fan. They had it in Killzone, and in Killzone it really added to the atmosphere, but Killzone was a style of game where that worked because it was kind of a narrative game, and even in the multiplayer they added narrative elements to that, because in Killzone when you completed a round it would have like these animations. In some of the rounds it would have animations between stages, so having those kind of animations made sense within the whole style of that game. But in Doom, having the melee in the multiplayer seems ridiculous, for starters because you very often can do a reasonable amount of damage and just run and bang them in the head, and it's like, that's not how it's supposed to work. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't, and it can be incredibly frustrating. And then you get into the latency issues. Now, again, this is a game where you're just being matched up with people with high pings, 150, 200, okay, which is not good for an arena shooter, because in an arena shooter, it's not just seconds that count, it's points of seconds that count. Half a second, 0.4 of a second. Those tiny increments make a massive difference. And when some person is, standing 6 feet away from you and then just teleports and grabs you and kills you, you're just like, what the fuck? Or maybe when you feel like you've been doing enough damage against another person, and maybe you're kind of even, and maybe you were just going to get the edge and get that kill, and then they grab you and bang you in the face. It's like, what? It's just ridiculous. The demons are just OP madness. The game feels like it's got no real, no true self of identity. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Hardline, where, and actually there's a lot of games now where they sort of try to incorporate elements from other things and think like, hey, this worked in this game, so we'll put it in ours. And it just, no, you've got to make the game feel genuinely unique. It has to have a selling point. It has to have something that pulls you in. It can't just be like an amalgamation of other things where you've seen in another game and thought like, hey, Call of Duty has loadouts, Battlefield has loadouts, that'll work for our game because, you know, that means people can customize. You've got to think about how that's going to work within the context of the actual gameplay and the mechanics itself. And by just kind of forcing it in there, that just doesn't happen. Power-ups and stuff like this, so again you've got like the Gauss rifle, you've got quad damage, you have the demon thing, which is just ridiculous, you have the demon runes as well, which makes you kind of superly overpower. The demon, I mean, if your team has the demon, right, the demon's going to be rushing around slaughtering other people. Now, as I've said before in other games like Battlefield, if you have like one entity or a group, you know, like a squad who are going around and doing a massive amount of damage, the other players on the team will then also be able to do better because it means they are facing less or definitely like a diminished sort of morale of an enemy because the enemy are just getting crushed. And then, you know, they spawn in, they're maybe like a little bit disorientated, they're not doing so good, they feel under pressure, and then it means it's easier for the rest of the team to actually get those kills and push on to the enemy. And that's what happens with the demon. Every time I've seen a team which have had like the demon once or whatever, you find the other team get pushed back and then sometimes they never really recover. So again, it just seems like a kind of gimmick that was put in there, and it just doesn't really work. I don't know why they decided to do this. Other stuff like quad damage is fine in there, it's very powerful, but again, you know, it doesn't make the person any more powerful, so if you get a few shots in from a different angle, that person's going down, not the end of the world. Secondary weapons and stuff though, it's just crazy. You don't get the gameplay you expect. Or that even works in this style of game. I think that's really all that needs to be said. I mean, as I say, you could rip it apart, you could go into detail about every little element there, but I just don't think it works. I don't think it was well thought out. Maybe they had, you know, it was more of an afterthought. Maybe it was like they were focusing a lot on the single player, and then they decided to just tack on the multiplayer. That's kind of old school. That's really, you know, it tends to be that games are very, very aware of the fact that people want to have a strong multiplayer. And with something like Doom, and with how much they've hyped it up, I think people really, really expected a lot more. I think that's the point. If it was just kind of a release, they posted it out there and were like, hey, it's Doom 4, you know, and put it out there, and then people were like, oh, it's got a bit of multiplayer on the side of it. But they've pushed it and hyped it, and with all their trailers and really action-packed. But in the, you know, in the actual multiplayer, it doesn't really, I don't get that sense. I was just kind of wandering around like, bang, there's a guy, there's a guy, there's a guy. It didn't have the speed of like something like Quake or Unreal, and so I didn't feel that like adrenaline, you know. I didn't feel the adrenaline going. It was very much like, and I would often find myself wandering around for several minutes and just not really encountering anybody. So I don't know, I wouldn't recommend it. And to be quite honest with you, if you want to get this kind of gameplay, if you want to get like fast arena action, just get Quake Live. It's free. Just, you know, just get it. You can download it right now. Go play that instead. You know, all of the stuff that's in there is classic and works well and is balanced, and you get really fast, furious action. I'm probably going to play some myself today, actually. So yeah, that's all I've got to say, guys. Tell me your thoughts about Doom down below, and don't buy it.